What's up, guys? Jason of New Year's Revolution down here. You know where. You know where. Down in the cave. Sitting on the floor here for a new look. Different backdrop. I know that there are green screen technology, obviously. It's primitive. And my man Stephen Brown did send me an actual green screen with a hanging and bars and perfect setup. I never figured out how to use it, but I think for the wrestling with the pasts, I want to do like a wrestling themed background. I don't know. Is my background a good enough background for wrestling with the past? I don't know. Anyway, we're going to talk about probably the most exciting house show. Oh, not probably. The most exciting house show I have seen up till this point. And we're talking about, I've seen a lot of the 70s house shows and everything so far in the 80s. And this is by far the most overwhelming, exciting WWF house show, the war to settle the score. February 17th, 1985. Let me confirm that. I didn't write it down. February 18th, 1985. So this was a bit of a cross promotion. Not even a cross promotion. I guess it was dually promoted, which would be the definition, I guess, of cross promotion. But MTV has now officially gotten involved in the WWF, and we have seen this coming since January, and December of '84, and November of '84. We've seen the involvement of Cyndi Lauper. We've seen Wendy Richter challenge Moolah. That was a big thing in '84. We saw, Captain Lou team up with Roddy Piper, and then Captain Lou turned good and teamed back up with Cyndi Lauper, which created a feud between Piper and Albano. We see, of course, Hogan involved in all of this. This spreads to Leilani Kai, winning the WWF title from Wendy Richter soon, maybe in this conversation. But Cyndi Lauper's involvement led to MTV's involvement. And then, as we'll see later, we get Mr. T's involvement. And all of this, whether we know it or not, whether the WWF knows it or not at this point, which I don't know if they did. Well, they did, but they weren't promoting it. All of this leads to WrestleMania 1, which then I think leads to WrestleMania 35, whichever one we're at. WrestleMania 1 paved the way to right where we are today. And so all of this, all of the WWF as we know it, and this is opinion, but all of the WWF as we know it today, maybe all of professional wrestling as we know it today, stemmed from this event, stemmed in this 4-month progression of Richter, Moolah, Leilani Kai, Piper, Albano, David Wolf, Hogan, and then eventually Mr. T. There's wrestling for you. There's the next 30 years of wrestling happening because of what's about to happen. Got all that? This is also at a time when we didn't see pay-per-views, okay? So Starrcade 83, Starrcade 84, not yet Starrcade 85 at this point, but Starrcade 83 and 84 for the NWA had already happened, right? So we do have the understanding of these big super cards, these big over-the-top events, but we're talking about the WWF here, right? They hadn't done something this massive yet. They had the showdown in Shea Stadium in '80, which was kind of a big deal, but I'm telling you right now, the war to settle the score, February 18th, simulcast on Madison Square Garden and eventually MTV. I was mistaken and thought the whole card was on MTV. It wasn't, and we'll get to that. So let's just start it off because we've got so much to talk about in the main event that I don't even want to waste any time with the undercard. But some of the undercard's important. All right. I have two versions of this. I have the WWE 24/7 version, and then I have a legit copy of the real version that aired with real theme music, and that is unbelievably important. The 24/7 version is junk. Okay, the picture quality is wonderful, but you do not get the MTV portion of the show. And you need the MTV portion of the show. I'm telling you, you need the MTV portion of the show, and you need the unedited entrance music. It's crucial. It's crucial. So I watched the 24/7 version up until the main event because the picture quality was so nice, and so I watched the 24/7 version up until the point where MTV gets involved. So let's talk about it. First match we get is Moondog Spot versus Rick McGraw. Rick McGraw, sadly, is going to be alive for a few more months in '85. He will die before the end of 1985. I wrote he's dead in 9 months. I've always talked about how I'll watch any match with the Moondogs and feel like it's a great match, whether it's an opening house show match or a 3-minute match on TV. I just love the Moondogs, and Rick McGraw is not bad. He's very small and very roided up, and that of course contributed to his early death. The back acne on Rick McGraw is just so noticeable on some close-ups, and whether you know or don't know, back acne is a major side effect of steroids. So a lot of the guys in the 80s, a lot of the wrestlers that you'll watch on TV, Barry Darsow was one of them. Demolition Smash, when he was Crusher Khrushchev in the NWA. His back is awful. Time limit draw. They called it a 20-minute draw, but it actually went about 14 minutes. You knew that the time limit draw was coming when they had like 8 or 9 back-to-back pinfall attempts towards the end of the match. So they were going for a, 1-2 time limit draw. Oh, that was kind of an interesting way to have a time limit draw back then. You didn't want a time limit draw with a guy in a headlock, or going up for a body slam. You wanted the pinfall to almost be happening, and then we get the time limit draw. I'm perfectly fine again with this match, with any Moondog match, and that's why you can sit and watch that 20-minute match and feel like you're still getting a good product. Up next, we've got Jose Luis Rivera versus Johnny Rodz. Maybe I don't want to sit for 20 minutes with this one. Rivera is very odd when he has the upper hand. He doesn't know what to do. And he'd been wrestling for a while at this point, at least a few years, probably longer. But he's just so uncertain and so odd when he's got the upper hand. He doesn't follow Rodz into the corner. He'll drop kick Rodz into the corner and then stand up and just kind of look at him like with his fists ready to, he doesn't, and I don't get it. Like, how do you not know to come in and do a leapfrog or out of the corner, or just, hammer him in the corner a few times, do the Irish Whip in the corner? He has no idea. He just looks uncomfortable and strange in his offense. He has no quick follow-up. He's stalling when Rodz is begging off. So Rodz is begging off. Perfect opportunity for, Jose to get in there and get some more offense on. But he just stopped. So the begging off worked, which I don't think you want the bad guy to beg off and have that work. I think you want to go in and kick him in the gut and have the crowd fired up. But what do I know? Rodz wins with a simple smash after Rivera runs into the turnbuckle. What does that mean? Well, it's 1985, and so you you end the match in all kinds of, lackluster ways. So Rivera whips Rods into the turnbuckle and charges after him. Rods gets out of the way, and Rivera hits the turnbuckle, falls down, and then Rods just jumps on him for the pin. That's it. There's your pinfall. Great. It's 1985. That's what we knew and loved back then, that these matches can end with a body slam. We got Hillbilly Jim versus Renee Goulet. Boy, the MSG crowd loves Big Jim. They just seem to get off on this goofy, clueless, overall wearing country boy coming to the ring in New York City. They just love Hillbilly Jim. It's your basic Hillbilly Jim match with purposely sloppy, inexperienced looking moves. What I mean by that is Hillbilly Jim is, an unfinished wrestler. He's not graceful. He hasn't learned everything he needs to know. So he's sloppy on purpose. And you got Renee Goulet doing exactly what he should be doing, making Hillbilly Jim look great. Of course, Hillbilly Jim wins it with the bear hug that Renee probably just jumped into. I think he was coming to. Maybe he was coming off the second rope. I haven't watched this. It took me like a month to finish the show. So I can't remember the Renee Goulet versus Hillbilly Jim match, but it's one of those situations where Hillbilly Jim is standing there and Renee Goulet either lunges at him or jumps off the second rope on him, and Hillbilly Jim catches him in the bear hug, and crowd goes nuts and announcers go nuts, and Renee Goulet quits. Wendy Richter versus Leilani Kai for the WWF Women's title is next, and I wrote, here we go. Because here we go. This is it. This is the beginning of WrestleMania, like right here. Moolah is seconding Kai, and of course Cyndi Lauper and Dave Wolf are with Wendy Richter, and they are making Wendy Richter look like Wendy Richter has totally embraced the MTV Cyndi Lauper look. So she's got the big earrings, she's got the colorful like bikini or bathing suit ring gear that they would wear. Not bikini. And she's totally, this hip MTV wrestler. When just a year ago she was cowboy Wendy Richter and was teaming with Moolah. But anyway, we got Leilani Kai, who I don't know why they chose her. I mean, again, it's 85, and so the women wrestlers didn't necessarily need to have a look. They didn't have a look. There were no really attractive, that's an awful thing to say, in comparison to the supermodel gymnast female wrestlers that are in WWE today. Leilani Kai and Moolah, who looked like my grandmother, all of the women wrestlers just looked like wrestlers, right? So there's nothing special about Leilani Kai. I don't know why they went with her as this transitional champion, but I'm just thinking, how huge is it for Lauper to be? Cyndi Lauper at this point, 85, I would think was a very large celebrity, anyway, in the music business. When I think of like the big three or big four of when I was a kid, it was Michael Jackson and Madonna and Cyndi Lauper and Bruce Springsteen. Those were the big names. Maybe Tina Turner, I don't know, but like those were the celebrity singers. So it's huge for the WWF to get her. It's probably huge for Madison Square Garden to have her, as part of the show for several months now. What's the equivalent today? Would it be Taylor Swift accompanying somebody to ring? I mean, would it be Beyonce? I don't know. I don't know what the equivalent is, but we see it. We see it with modern wrestling. We see singers coming out and rappers and all sorts of stuff. But I just think it's different back then. I think that because the worlds were so separate, and now they're colliding for the first time. And now you have Cyndi Lauper, who's really just representing the whole MTV generation, the young punk hip MTV generation, and they're being just, transported right into the world of wrestling. I don't usually watch the ladies' matches. And again, that is very sexist of me and just primitive and caveman-y. But I just don't care. When on these house shows, if there's a women's tag match, I just skip them because the in-ring action is not good. I don't know. I just skip them. I just don't care. I had to watch this one because it was introducing us to the next level of WWF wrestling. This was introducing us to our childhoods, to LJN, to WrestleMania, and beyond. You know, this match. Thank you, Leilani Kai, for ushering in wrestling as we know it, helping to usher in wrestling as we know it. Historical yet botchy, okay, a little botchy, and went about 17 or 18 minutes it seemed. Moolah and Lauper, so it's a back and forth match. Wendy Richter's your champion. Moolah and Lauper get involved, but the end comes when Cyndi Lauper takes the bump, right? So Moolah gets the upper hand on Lauper this time, all right, which is just perfect strategy. The bad guys, beat up Cyndi Lauper, little Cyndi Lauper, and she does pretty well for a non-wrestler, non-actress kind of person. She slumps down with her eyes closed. She's knocked out. She's dead. And that allows Leilani Kai to roll up Wendy Richter for the pin. And immediately Moolah jumps in the ring and is jumping up and down in her with her. She's my grandma. She truly is my grandma. I wish that I had a photo of my grandma I could show you. Moolah is my grandma. And jumping up and down with her sweater and her yoga pants before they were yoga pants and just whatever. She's jumping up and down. She's got this tiny little women's belt, which is just that big. And Leilani Kai, they're celebrating, and crowd is furious because Cyndi Lauper is dead on the outside of the ring. She's just crushed, and I think it was like a kick or a push or something, but she sells it like a referee, right? She's just out, she's gone, and the crowd hates that. The crowd is furious, and David Wolf is on commentary, and he's furious, and he rushes to Cyndi Lauper's aid, and Wendy Richter's not even mad that she lost the title. She's trying to help Cyndi Lauper. It's so good. It's so good. Next up, we've got David Sammartino versus Moondog Rex. So we've got a Moondog again. And I wrote, actually a great match. Actually a great match. David gets his nose bloodied, which I think changed the match. Because a bloody nose in wrestling is an accident, right? You're not blading your nose. So David Sammartino is bleeding from a shot by Moondog Rex or whatever, and I think that changes the course of the match because from that point on, Moondog Rex is just working over the nose, which is great. And what I really love about it is that Moondog Rex has nose blood on his fists. Right? Did you ever notice when, nothing exposes wrestling more than a guy with an extremely bloody forehead and somebody hammering him on the forehead and the guy's knuckles don't have any blood on them, right? What's up? But so I thought it was an awesome visual touch that Moondog Rex had blood on his hands from, and I loved it. He would get these punches were not part of the match, right? And this is just the magic of wrestling and the knowledge and the experience. As soon as David Sammartino's nose is bleeding, Moondog Rex is going up to him and just hitting him with really short punches in the nose, just awkward, weird-looking punches right to the nose. And David Sammartino's like falling all over the ring. That wouldn't have happened if Sammartino's nose wasn't bleeding. And it just made the match so cool because now it's not a back and forth. It was a back and forth until the nose was bleeding. Now it's not a back and forth. Now David Sammartino is selling it like a broken leg, like a broken neck. And Moondog Rex is attacking it as if he's this rabid animal that's, found a weakened body part. And it's a nose, right? But he's just hammering the nose. I love it. I love it. Which gives David Sammartino a lot of face heat. I don't want to say, it's not called face heat, but baby face in peril, right? He gets to sell the heck out of the nose. And Moondog Rex, how dastardly of Rex to just go right back to that nose and pop it again. And the crowd is furious. And this is what makes this such a good match. You take this mid-card match, and it turns into a great match because of the bloody nose. This also gives David Sammartino an opportunity to hulk up, right? He's got the blood coming, he's hulking up, and he's angry about the blood, and the crowd is cheering him on. So we get a David Sammartino hulk up, which is fun. And Rex just knows what to do, and it's so great. David does catch him with the power slam for the win. But I loved this match so much because of how it turned, simply because of a bloody nose. I loved it. Loved it. We got Nikolai Volkov versus Swede Hanson. Why does New York cheer madly for the Confederate flag waving Swede Hanson? Look, I'm not a history scholar, but I did teach 5th grade history this year. Okay, I did take one. I took one semester at junior college, but I taught 5th grade history, and we did learn about Civil War, and we did learn about South and North and New York State, and the upper half, the North, and we did learn about the Confederacy and the flag. I'm not getting into anything about that. I'm just wondering, why would the New York crowd of New Yorkers be cheering wildly for a Southerner bringing in the Confederate flag? I don't know. Is it just because wrestling fans are dumb? Right? We've got a match with Bret Hart from Canada versus the Iron Sheik, and the crowd is chanting USA, USA to rally up Bret. What? Anyway, I was kind of excited about this match. I don't know why. I just thought it would just be two over the top, big, goofy, smelly guys just potatoing each other, and I don't know. The crowd is throwing tons and tons of stuff during the national anthem. During the Russian national anthem, of course. Tons of stuff being thrown into the ring. And Volkov is just standing there. Paper cups are bouncing off his head. He doesn't care. And Swede is waving the Confederate flag. I don't know. I like Volkov, but I've always thought that, and this is a divided thought. Some people think differently, but his floppiness in the ring, the way he fell, the way he fell in like 4 different stages. It was just this odd drop and roll kind of thing. It was just weird. He just sold very strangely. The match isn't as good as I thought. Volkov actually tried. So Volkov's finisher is a press slam, but not a fully extended press slam. He kind of gets him up and then rests him on his own head. Grabs him by the trunks, and you always see the wedge, a super wedgie coming, and then he drops him on the knee. So it's like a quick press slam knee breaker or back breaker, right? He actually went for it on the 300+ pound big Swede Hanson. Doesn't get it. Doesn't get it. In fact, he tries about 3 times to get him up. Can't do it. And then instead of like starting over with something else, he just power slams him. He just drops. So it's this awkward attempt at hulking him up, give up, and then just fall on him. And Swede Hanson takes the pin on that. I don't know. Yeah. Finally, we got Snuka versus Orton. Jimmy Snuka versus Cowboy Bob Orton. Now we get to see why Jimmy Snuka is going to accompany Hogan and Mr. T to WrestleMania, why Cowboy Bob Orton's involved. Well, here's the start of it. So we get Snuka and Orton, which is just such an LJN match. But it kind of falls flat. They never really got going. It just didn't feel like that big of a deal, this match. But the big story of this match is the start of the famous Bob Orton cast. It happens here. Bob Orton's arm gets hurt a couple of times in the match, and I think the big the big hurt arm is Snuka banging it into the turnbuckle. I think that was the break, the big break of the arm. I think maybe. I think at one point he slams it into the guardrail outside. So we got the arm angle. Snuka wins with a sunset flip over the top rope. So Snuka's on the outside, Orton's on the inside. Snuka goes over the top rope with the sunset flip, and I just love the sunset flip. I think it's such a great move. It looks like such a hard move to do, especially when guys do it off like the top turnbuckle. Remember when Ronnie Garvin beat Ric Flair for the NWA title? He did it with a sunset flip off the top turnbuckle. And I just never understood how you would hit that move. Barry Windham does it. It's such a scary looking move, like a flip. You break your neck, or you land way too far from the guy, and then you can't. It just looks awkward to pull him over, or you land on the guy's back and just crush him. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Maybe Brian Hardy can sunset flip me, and I'll understand. Yeah, so Snuka wins, and Orton has the broken arm. Now let's talk about the main event. And this is going to be very photo heavy, so get ready for a lot of pictures. Now I'm switching to the actual copy of The War to Settle the Score. And MTV is there. We've got Mean Gene Okerlund and Alan Hunter in some kind of a setup, some kind of a studio with an MTV signage and a WWF signage right next to them. So here we go. The marriage is happening between these two entities, these two massive 80s entities, MTV and the WWF. MTV is recapping this entire feud. So MTV is going back to the 84, and they are recapping, Wendy Richter and Moolah. They're recapping Cyndi Lauper and Captain Lou. We're seeing, the big build-up to when Wendy Richter defeats Moolah after 30 years of her being the champion. We get Cyndi Lauper training Wendy Richter. So all this stuff, they really pulled it. They really pulled the Albano, Lauper, Piper involvement. They told the whole story. And now they're showing clips of, now we get to meet Roddy Piper and meet Hulk Hogan. So they're showing Roddy Piper's greatest hits, they're showing Hulk Hogan's greatest hits, and it's just so great. I mean, it's about an hour. It's about 45, 50 minutes of MTV's recap and build up of this feud. Amazing. Just so great. And I watched the whole thing, which I always do, but sometimes I skip recaps a little bit. Sometimes I don't like to watch like the year in review. I just skip that stuff. But I sat there because this was historical. This was iconic. In between the storytelling, now we get, because now it's wrestling versus music. All right, it's wrestling versus rock and roll specifically. And so we have bad guys. Who do we have? We got Bobby Heenan, we got Paul Orndorff, we got Dr. D. They're all giving their opinion about the match, and of course their hatred for rock and roll. The bad guys in the WWF, of course, hate rock and roll music. Then we got opinions from the good guys, who are obviously supporting Hogan, and they're talking about how much they love rock and roll music and how much they love MTV. We've got opinions from actors. We've got the funniest parts are when they interview musicians. So they got Dee Snider, who's just from Twisted Sister, who's just going off on Piper. You're insulting rock and roll, Roddy Piper. You're gonna have to deal with me. This is great. So that's spliced all throughout. Just, Little Richard cuts a pro good guy promo, and oh man, Nikolai Volkov, who of course hates music, and you got to respect Russian national anthem. He's going off. Freddie Blassie's going off. Iron Sheik says some stuff about rock and roll and Cyndi Lauper. It's so good. It's so good. In fact, Heenan calls it. MTV stands for Music to Vomit By, which is just so beautiful. Bobby Heenan. I'm getting the feeling that this is the biggest thing in the world. They are the hype of this match, the pre-show is making this feel like the biggest moment in history. Okay, period. In history. It's bigger than any sporting event. It's bigger than the Super Bowl. MTV and the WWF came together and did this incredible build-up to this match. So good. They show Hogan guest VJing on MTV in September of 1984. They just, like I said, the build-up is incredible. Piper comes out with the massive bagpipe band, which I love, and he only does that for big events. And honestly, they brought in about 12 bagpipers, all dressed up. They come down, they play the tune, they walk around the ring, and they leave playing. And Piper follows them with this beautiful heel look on his face, this incredible "I'm disgusted in all of you" look on his face. And I don't love Piper as a talker. I love him as a crowd angerer. I love him as a make the crowd want to kill you. And he simply does that with a look as he walks down the aisle. Well, to make it even better, he's wearing a Hulkamania t-shirt. He has a Hulkamania t-shirt on, and he blows his nose in it and throws it to the crowd. And I watched two people in the crowd almost kill each other for this t-shirt. And that's awesome. Bob Costas, for some reason, is doing the intros. Piper also comes to the ring with an electric guitar. So he's got the Hogan t-shirt. He's already doing the Jimmy Snuka "I Love You," and he's got a guitar because during his intro he smashes the guitar. Of course he has to smash the guitar. Crowd eats it up. Piper, ultimate bad guy, crapping on Hogan with the t-shirt, crapping on music by breaking the guitar, and for whatever reason Bob Costas does the ring announcing. Then we get Eye of the Tiger, and the crowd has its first seizure. They have officially their first seizure of the night. They go absolutely insane when Hogan's music hits, and down the aisle he comes, but he's coming out with Lauper. He's coming out with Dave Wolf. And I think Wendy Richter was there too. And I think Albano was there too. I probably should have wrote that down. But he's coming out with the whole crew, the whole entourage. It's important. It's important that they be there. This is where Piper throws the shirt into the crowd. And him and Hogan are staring at each other. They're both shaking. They're both firing up. And they both run at each other like animals. And they're just throwing punches. And the crowd has its second seizure. Then Piper goes for like the double leg takedown, and he's got Hogan down, and they're rolling on each other and they're punching each other, and I'm literally losing my mind. I'm going nuts watching this because it's so special, and I couldn't even imagine what I would be doing at 9 years old. I don't even know what I'd be doing at 9 years old. Would I be screaming and jumping up and down on the couch? Would I be being yelled at by my parents? I don't know. I am... In that moment, I am genuinely excited to be watching this. And I've got anxiety. I've got adrenaline while this is happening. And this has not happened since I've been rewatching this stuff. But I've got legit adrenaline pumping for this event. I couldn't imagine being there live. Okay, with all of the celebrity presence, with the MTV presence, with the there's a ton of security. I could not imagine being in the Madison Square Garden crowd during this insane matchup. Just a great brawl. Just a great Piper Hogan brawl, but with more intensity and more importance. Halfway through the match, Paul Orndorff comes down. We've got a horrible ref bump. Literally, Piper backed into the ref. The referee went down in a flop and just laid there dead. You would think that referees would have some ability, or maybe they're told just lay there like a log. Don't even move. I don't know, but we've got the ref bump, so you know what's happening. We've got Orndorff and Piper get to attack Hogan. They've got the double team on Hogan until Lauper, Cyndi Lauper gets up on the ring apron, and she's going to come to the aid of Hogan. Well, so that gets Piper and Orndorff to stop working on Hogan and start walking towards Cyndi Lauper. Okay? So now what happens? Now what happens? The fellow that's been sitting in the front row, Mr. T, stands up and is pointing his fingers while the crowd is losing their mind. The crowd has its third seizure and first heart attack when Mr. T climbs over the barrier. Okay, now Mr. T is standing, he's got Cyndi Lauper down, and he's standing on the ring steps, and he's up on the apron, and he's holding on to the turnbuckle pole, right, to the ring post. He's not in the ring yet. Piper and Orndorff back away, and they're telling him come in. Okay, now this is what makes it so good. Mr. T's not a wrestler. If it was Hogan on the ring apron, he'd be looking around at the crowd, getting in. Mr. T doesn't know how to do that. He doesn't know to do that, so he's just standing there. And the crowd is going insane. And he steps to the ropes, and the crowd dies. They've had seizures, they've had heart attacks, now they're dead. The entire Madison Square Garden crowd is dead with enthusiasm. Okay, not dead as in a dead crowd, but they're just gone. They're gone. They are bananas. They have lost their mind because Mr. T steps into the ring. Immediately upon entering the ring, he's attacked and he's beaten down by Orndorff and Piper. And I think Orton's involved at this point. Orton comes out. Orton has a cast on. He's got his arm in a sling. So it's the beginning of the cast. Well, now they're pounding on Mr. T. Well, what do you think happens next? Hogan's coming up. Hogan sees what's going on over there. And the bad guys notice Hogan, but there's no fight. They leave. So they stop beating up Mr. T and they leave. Mr. T gets up. He starts to chase them out of the ring. Hogan knows that's not a good idea. You can't touch them yet. You cannot. Mr. T cannot get any offense on Piper or Orndorff. So Mr. T just instinctively climbs outside the ring. Hogan has to grab him and pull him back into the ring. Okay, so Hogan's running this thing because you can't touch them yet. Well, I'm sorry. Okay, one more thing. So Mr. T goes to grab him, or Mr. T goes to chase him. Hogan grabs him back. Orndorff and Piper threaten to get in the ring. Cops hit the ring. It's a total melee. We've got all kinds of WWF officials in the ring. Real legitimate New York City police officers with the coat and the hat. I mean, it's 85. They look awesome. They're in the ring. It's bananas. Piper and Orndorff and Orton get the heck out of there, and we're left with Mr. T and Hulk Hogan in the ring, doing a little posing, it's not your usual Hulk Hogan it's just something big happened here, and we got to get control of this. This is out of control. It's crazy. I think it would have been great if Vince McMahon got in the ring and tried to settle things down, but it was unbelievable. Unbelievable. After that, we're still not done. MTV is still not done with the broadcast. I think they had about 90 minutes. I think they had 2 hours because from their segment, the match, and then the after party is all aired. And the after party is just interviews in the dressing room. So we've got interviews with celebrities. For some reason, Andy Warhol is interviewed. And I think that they just begged him to do it and didn't tell him to say anything because Mean Gene is asking him stuff. And Andy Warhol is just flat. He doesn't know what to say. He's terrible. Danny DeVito is interviewed. That's okay, I guess. I don't know why. That's when Piper comes in and starts to insult DeVito. Piper says a bunch of great stuff, actually great stuff for Piper. He's wet. He's no shirt. He might have just got out of the shower. He looks great. It's just intense to have him come out of the shower and talk like that. Then they bring in Joe Piscopo, who's just a total boob. Piscopo's a total goof. He comes in and he's like, honestly just making fun of wrestling, and he's just not like literally, but just his answers are horrible. And then he leaves, and the camera kind of like follows, the camera pans back, and so you get to see Joe Piscopo leave, and he's laughing as he's walking out, like he's laughing with Alan Hunter, and he's walking out, and then that's it. Mean Gene, who's trying his best to keep this all together and keep it very kayfabed and very wrestling. But when you mess with celebrities, they don't know what to do, and it looks bad. We got Alan Hunter and Mean Gene closing out the show, and thank you and MTV and blah blah blah. Then the show ends, but the camera doesn't cut off. So you hear Alan Hunter going, "Great job, guys, everybody, great job." And I'm like, oh man, and that's airing. That's on the tape that I have. So that's how it ended. But go out of your way now to get the actual MTV version of the War to Settle the Score. Don't watch the whole card. Don't worry about it. But watch Leilani Kai versus Richter, and watch the build-up and the pre-show to the Hogan match that was aired on MTV. So that portion was aired on MTV. Unbelievable. I don't know if it was simulcast on MSG and MTV. I would assume so. So did MSG, while you're watching it live on MSG, does everybody in the world then suddenly turn to MTV and watch the main event on MTV? I don't know. I can't remember. But go out of your way to see it. I know this was a 40-minute Wrestling with the Past, but you've got to feel the War to Settle the Score. You have to see it. All right. That's it. We are done. We'll go back to, we got a TNT to review next. You go from the War to Settle the Score to a very Hillbilly Jim and Granny themed TNT. But it was okay. And then I think we just have a Championship Wrestling show to review. So, War to Settle the Score. That's it. Thank you all. Have a good night. Good night now.